Hello, everyone. We are getting into the IS Standardization Dialogue webinar room. So let's wait for all attendees to join us, and we will start the webinar in a minute. Great. So to be on time, I think we can start. Hello, everyone. My name is Andrea Motola. I'm project coordinator of Risers project, and welcome to our Industrial Symbiosis Standardization Dialogues Part 1, I would say. In today's webinar session, we were going to discuss the current approaches, the current cooperation and bottlenecks when it comes to the discussion about how to standardize the industrial symbiosis. So first of all, a couple of rules of action. During the event, you can have your video. You can keep your video closed, but when you want to speak, open your video or microphone and unmute yourself. This meeting is being recorded, as you might have heard, and all the presentation and the recordings will be made public on the CEN website, YouTube channels, and also on the project websites. So please follow us either on the social media or through our project website. We will have a dedicated QA session in the end, but if you any questions come across your mind, please drop it also in the Q&A part of this Zoom session, and keep staying for what we are doing with regards to our Risers project and activities, either through our social media and through our project website. So let me start with the content of this session and what we are going to discuss today. So we are starting with a discussion of the advancement in industrial symbiosis standardization and where do we stand now, which will be presented by Raul Carlson, which is the chair of CEN Technical Committee on Circular Economy. We are very glad to have him here. We're going to continue with a discussion on the challenges of standardizing industrial symbiosis, which will be presented by James Woodcock, following by where the opportunities really land, which will be presented by one of our big package leaders, Jugend team lead Lieven Demoler. And then we're going to discuss what is happening currently, which are the ongoing initiatives related to the industrial symbiosis standardization, where the presentation on the synergies of the technical committees will be presented, and also our very kind call to participate in our first Riser survey will be presented by Sebastian from CEN. Of course, then we will have a short QA session. But before diving into the discussions of our distinguished experts, I would like to a little bit highlight what is the Risers project about and where do we stand. So as some of you may know, we are a Horizon Europe funded project under the Cluster 4, discussing and being a part of the collaborative and supportive actions. We have started our activities in January 2024. Therefore, now we are landing on the month 9 of the project, and we will be finishing in December 2026. We have 9 partners working together that you can see on the screen across 9 work packages, and you can see that we will be working hard on working on our 26 deliverables throughout the project, the public ones. You will be able to look in our project website and social media to learn more about it. But why we are talking about the industrial symbiosis here today is that we know that this topic is very essential for addressing the zero ambitions that are underscored by many European policies, by many European laws. But what is important is to understand that this aspect of presenting the industrial symbiosis and pushing it forward is really trying to present that the fact that we are sharing and we are exchanging the set of underutilized resources, underutilized connection between the industries and sector that traditionally, as we know, operate very separately, but really we can create the mutual benefits with regards to that and reduce the overall environmental, social, and economic impacts on the operation of these either resources, industries, and sectors. So what we know in general about the fact of in the industrial symbiosis that it is really, I would say, even drastically under practiced. And throughout our Rises project, we really want to work on the upscaling of industrial symbiosis in Europe as a systematic approach that is really requiring the broader perspective, which is going beyond one sector and really in introducing the cross-sectoral cooperation. Therefore, our project aims to really build a roadmap that will integrate the practice, the policy, and the R&I to promote the standardization of industrial symbiosis. And our approach is really to use a methodological combination of building the community and collaboration, defining the needs, gaps, and opportunities, which Liven will talk about a bit later, discussing where the promotion of R&I uptake stands when it regards to industrial symbiosis. How can we connect better the policymakers with the topic and engage them and really have an impact on future policies and regulations in the area? And of course, this all will lead us towards the development of our standardization roadmap towards the end of the project. Not to take too much further time from our distinguished speakers, on the screen you can see all the different products and outputs that our project is aiming to work on. We are currently in the phase of like mapping the gaps and opportunities and really trying to identify the priority sectors where the industrial symbiosis should happen. We are setting the stone for I would say identifying the key policy stakeholders and also mapping the European and international technical bodies, which is currently feeding into the phase of the technical committee survey that we promote and proudly want to present also in this webinar. Please follow our project activities throughout the time. And now I would like to really take up the floor for our speakers. Raul, please go ahead and take the word from me. Very happy to have you here.
Thank you so much, and I will immediately share my screen. We know we are many people who will also present interesting stuff on this webinar. So my perspective, advancements in industrial symbiosis standardization, and as you already heard, I work with circular economy standardization. I was both part of the international standardization, especially how to measure circularity. And now I am also chairman of the European standardization for circular economy. So my perspective is from there, and so that you know that I'm also short, which means I have to fly on a high level, not detail too much. So my perspective is circular economy. I work at RISE, Research Institutes of Sweden, and as a senior researcher in the certification development department there. So I start with just giving a view industrial symbiosis. Many of you are experts already. I just want to be sure to distinguish industrial symbiosis from circular economy in some way. Not necessary, but it's good for our concepts. When we talk about industrial symbiosis, we usually think about geographically close sites. Of course, close has a economic meaning, so whatever is meaningful to move resources. The focus is industry and production. And it's about exchanging sufficiently large amount of stable flows of stable quality and of undervalued spill to establish a symbiotic system of different production systems to minimize loss, waste, and maximize production of good. So that is where we are in the industrial symbiosis. Having then a look at the circular economy, the typical representation there, they're taken from the International Standard 59010 that was released this year. And of course, one way to describe it is a geographically large value networks. I could say geographically indefinite value network. It's not important for the size there. It's more that they are networks enabling the maintenance, the handling of resources. They include entire system from resource extraction to losses through value utilization. And of course, also everything, all aspects of that inside. They look at the sphere of influence and how it moves from different shifts perspective and also grows. So it is intended that this system is growing over time. Continual innovation is always has to be part of it, because one is never finished with making a totally circular economic system. Focus is on value creation in the economic system or of the economic system, depending on how you consider the economy here. If we look at the particular definitions, you already heard the one on industrial symbiosis. It's about better utilize underutilized resources and keep them in the productive use for longer, and also contributing to the sustainability of production systems. Circular economy is different. It's an economic system. It's really emphasis on that. It has a systemic approach to maintain a circular flow of resources by recovering, retaining, or adding to their value. Very much emphasis on adding to value, which is also why we emphasize that's an economic system. So what about the differences and relationships between these two? Industrial symbiosis is applicable to systems that produces value, and circular economy is applicable to economic systems, for example, that is systems which produces, utilizes, and maintains value. So not only the production system itself, but the entire economic system with such units in it, or system units. Relationships between these two then. Industrial symbiosis is a strategy for value production systems in a circular economy. So if you consider a circular economy, we really need industrial symbiosis systems in there. And circular economy provides a context and an effective platform for symbiotic industrial systems. So if you have symbiotic systems, you want them to really come into effect, and that's when we can put them in the context of circular economy. So what about standards? First of all, we need standards to define industrial symbiosis, and we have that in the CEN workshop agreement, industrial symbiosis, core elements and implementation approaches. We know that, I've also mentioned that later, that is something that's growing and will definitely start being utilized better. Then we need general specific requirements of symbiosis carrying resources. That is, of course, the term I haven't seen defined, but the resources that carry the symbiosis relationships has to be better defined. One have to have guidance on how to define these. We don't have them so much. And also guidance for how to make stable responsibility for symbiotic relationships. These two are very important for the industrial symbiosis. For circular economy, we are a bit ahead. We have the 5904 and 5910 standards for defining the terminology of and the principles of circular economy, and also for business models. And we also have the standard 59020 that measure circularity. And then we have a lot of standards coming up. So one is the business models again. One is about sharing information between different symbiotic, or should we say, trading systems in the business circular economy. And also we have a digital product passport, which is a really long advanced system to sharing information. And material declarations is about how to describe materials. And of course, then we have the keys, the circular economy's product lifetime, appraise resource value, include natural regenerative resources, etc. And all these things have to be put in there eventually. We are not there yet, but we have a very good core. And together, of course, these two groups of standardization will develop quite a lot. And what else do we have standardized so far? We have to remember that we stand on quite a heavy piece of information from life cycle assessment that help us understand the impacts from circular flows all over the world or closely. Material flow cost accounting, not so much known standard about how to measure losses from an economic point of view inside organizations. And then we have the entire economics of environmental costs, and it's also part of the environmental management system standards. And then we have, as I mentioned before, material declaration, how to describe properties and qualities and maybe even values of resources. And the entire circular economy is a growing list of first the 59,000 series of standards, but also different sector, textile sector, fishing gear sector. For you not into that is, I think, could come as a positive surprise. Plastics, furniture, construction. Quite a lot is going on as being built up all over the sector-wise interest with that this is happening. And as I said before, we are already starting in the circular economy side in Europe also to take one more step into the European regulations to match it with regulations that is going on. The terminology and framework, information sharing, extended producer responsibility, circular business models, and yeah, of course, the chairman's advisory group is there, but just to have everything held together. And as you probably come into at this meeting also, we have a newly released proposal for standardizing the sustainable industrial symbiosis, and that one was closed 33rd of August. I don't know the result. Maybe someone in the meeting does. I can expect that. So what are the challenges we face here? Business cases need to be economically localized, and that is something that one have to understand. Symbiosis carrying resources need stable quality supply or relative value, and that is always a problem for specific industries that need to be delivering spare material. System external market dynamics may impact stability, and we have a world that is not trustworthy, which is a challenge in itself. Drivers, legislation is a driver, waste directive, eco design directive, etc. Decrease of CO2 emissions. I will not prolong this list because they will be handed out later on, but there is a lot of drivers going on there. Resilience is a really tricky one, and it's also part of the challenges over here. Actors, authority standardization requests, and then we have all the different sectors which have a really important role, like the intermediates like plastics, aluminum, concrete, bioenergy, forestry and paper, etc. Biogas is a really big, bioenergy in general, but biogas, of course, because you have an advanced system there. So having concluded there, I think we are already on the start to understand what we are up to now in the rest of the day.
Thank you, Raul. That was very, very concise and clear. Thank you for this great introduction to the advancements in the industrial symbiosis standardization. And now, James, can you take the word? Thanks.
Right, everyone. I'm just going to get this PowerPoint running. So good morning, afternoon. So I'm James Woodcock. I'm a Senior Project Manager for International Synergies and part of the RISERS team. I've been training programs in over 25 countries with regards to industrial symbiosis, and I've operated as a facilitator in over almost 20 years. And I've also taken part in various EU projects such as SPIRE, SAES, CircleARity, and various other funded, facilitated programs. What I'm going to be talking about today is, we've spoken about the CWA, you've seen it, but I'm going to be talking about why that was needed and what it actually produced. Talk about some of the standardization needs that support industrial symbiosis, such as characterization of waste and the facilitation for reuse for technical applications and things like that, but also look at next steps. Where do we need to go? So why did we need this CWA? Why did we need that? Well, there was lots of different definitions of industrial symbiosis across various different DGs, environment, grow, regio, research. They all had different mentions of industrial symbiosis. So we needed a consistency. And it was important that we had that consistency because the 2018 amendment for the Waste Framework Directive specifically called for member states to promote sustainable use of resources through industrial symbiosis. So we needed to know what we were talking about. And these different definitions from projects actually defined IS in different manners. So we needed a consistent approach because then we knew what we were actually going to be talking about. So in 2018, 4 European projects, Sharebox, EPOS, TRIS and SYMBI, got together and there were 22 different organizations that were all actively involved in industrial symbiosis. Then we got together to develop and approve a process that led to an industry-led consensus of what was the definition of industrial symbiosis. And it set out various things. It set out what were core elements of industrial symbiosis were, what were the drivers, what were the different approaches that you could take, and what was classed as good practice of implementation. And all of those are actually contained within the CWA itself. So if we look at core elements, we can see that the industrial symbiosis is the use of one company or sector of underutilized resources. And it was important that we had this broad definition. You know, quite often people would focus on material waste, but it was important that we had this broad definition. And it's the use by another company, organization, of resources that are available from a separate company, with the result of keeping those resources in productive use for longer. It returns underutilized resources to productive use. It contains information about opportunities, such as data of other organizations' resources or new technologies. And it talked about the business conditions that incentivize industrial symbiosis as well. What it did not address was specifics, such as actual standards relating to the resources. It didn't align primary resources or practices, and these things were really the responsibility of end of waste. And what I'm going to talk about now, I'm going to spend a bit of time now talking about end of waste, because that is actually quite important with regards to industrial symbiosis. And I'm going to use pulverized fuel ash as our example here. The first thing is that an end of waste will talk about specific EWC codes. So for pulverized fuel ash, it's 10.01.01 and 10.01.02. This is important because similar materials can have totally different EWC codes, European Waste Catalogue codes, and depending on the sector that produces the waste and the process that produces the waste. So glass, for example, has it has over 8 different EWC codes associated with it. So when you look at an end of waste determination, it's important that we understand specifically which wastes and where those wastes have come from that are actually dealing with. It deals with treatment processes, which are important. How do you actually treat this is important from a point of view of it is a waste. How do we stop it being a waste? And it deals with the quality required to get to, which is also very important. Now, the quality part has been covered really well in end of waste. It looks at the product standards and specifications of where can this be used, but it also looks at things such as the POPs, the REACH, and CPR. So all of these things are important, and they are embedded within an end of waste for a specific type of waste as well. So it has taken a good view with regards to how do we keep this in use and what are the things that we need to have regard for. It then also includes compliance. How are you going to make sure and measure and prove that what you have done with your waste to make it meet the criteria? How are you making sure that you are measuring and proving your compliance? And then it also talks about the different uses and restrictions of uses that can actually occur with the resources that are being covered by the end of waste. So here we look, this is an example again for PFA. So this is the standards and specifications that are embedded within the end of waste protocol. And if you look, you can see here that it covers different types of product standards that exist. It covers different types of use. So whether it's for reuse in aggregate, whether it's used in concrete, whether it's used in cement, whether it's used for other types of uses, bituminous mixtures, for example. So somebody picking up that end of waste will be able to look at the standards and specifications that it covers, and they will be able to go to them and say, right, okay, I'm going to try and sell into this market. So I know what type of exact standards I need to get to if I want to sell into that market as a product, not as a waste. So the end of waste process is a really good methodology and a really good way forward with regards to promoting and resources otherwise classified as waste, but getting them out of waste into being a product that could then be used as a feedstock into specific production processes. Now, the issue is, of course, there aren't that many end of waste that have been produced compared to the amount of different types of wastes and products that are out there. So what we actually need is we need a clear need for guidance with regards to facilitating IS. And that is where we need to be looking forward with regards to the RISES project and going forward with end of waste as well. The end of waste process needs to be suited to give clear guidance for industry, and it needs to expand rapidly. Yeah, as I said, we've got a number of end of waste that are being produced. There are a number that are being worked on. But what we need to do is find a methodology the way we can expand that in a much clearer, more rapid expansion. And part of the Risers project as well is to look at identifying key industrial symbiosis synergies, matches. What are the key matches that need to be covered? And what are the key resources that are involved in those key matches? And those priority ones are where we're going to be looking at with regards to what impact would that be with regards to end of waste? What end of waste do we need to work on that would then benefit best those priority resources and those priority matches? Very fast, very whirlwind. Hopefully you found that useful, and that ends my presentation.
Thank you, James, and you really gave a good connection to start of the next one. Liv, and we will be talking about where the opportunities actually stand and where it all fits into Risers.
Okay. Thank you, Andrea. I'm just quickly going to upload my presentation. Hello, everyone. My name is Lieven de Mulder. I'm an engineer and part of the Energy and Cluster Management Research Group at the University of Ghent. We are part of the Electromechanical Systems and Metals Engineering, and our research group was started under the supervision of Professor Greet van Eetvelde since 1998. We started as a research group working on business parks, looking into interactions between companies on the exchange of energy. But quickly, our research also grew outside these borders, taking not only energy, but also material streams and services, shared infrastructure, transport, etc., into account. We are an interdisciplinary research group, which means that we are looking outside engineering models, also into economic and financial and legal and social aspects of engineering problems. Our role in the Risers project is laying the foundations of the projects, as we will look into the broad scope of industrial symbiosis and try to target the areas where the standardization optimization can show the most value. And so we will start by understanding the IS areas, starting from the CWE, for example, and then target the priority areas and the key sectors where the standardization roadmaps can be improved to improve the application of industrial symbiosis in the field. So we've started by creating lists of important documents, not only reporting on existing IS cases in the real practice in the industry, but also by collecting data on impact of IS cases, on the priorities that exist in the policy fields, and the broader extent of projects that have handled the IS topic and the applications. So the deliverables that will be expected from our work package will target mainly on setting the methodology and the scope of the project, identifying cross-sectoral IS priority synergies, which have a high impact on the policy goals within the European Union, and that also show the highest potential in industry. And finally, we will try to identify the standardization roadmaps for these specific cross-sectoral synergies. And we will look for gaps, how we can improve the standards so that they can show growth in the future. So how did we handle this task? We looked into literature, and already a lot of projects have been taking place in the past decades, inventorizing the application of IS in large fields all over the world. So different databases already collect IS cases. And I'm referring to projects that probably are familiar to, like EPOS, Scalar, Maestri. There are a lot of databases that collect IS cases from process industries, but we also looked outside these boundaries in wide literature for IS cases in the bioprocess economy, services sector, etc. So, of course, a lot of these databases have similar IS cases involved. So we try to filter these unique cases from this data set. So we are looking at unique combinations of input-output sectors and the subjects, so the material, energy, or services streams that are handled in these IS cases. And we will try to identify these unique subjects by clustering them together. And in the final step, we will also map them according to the sectors where they serve, either as an input or as an output. So we've tried to look in this as a binary model where each subject of industrial symbiosis is exchanged by an input or an output sector. So here I can show some first results from this mapping. So here we looked into a total database of 600 unique cases and 300 unique resources that are exchanged within these IS cases. And here we can show that, of course, waste makes large part of these data sets, as they are accounted in a lot of reported IS cases. But also energy is a very important topic, I guess in a very logic way. And we also pointed out that services and data, for example, like energy monitoring systems, have some interesting opportunities, also like shared infrastructure for exchange of heat, hydrogen, or electricity. In the next step, we also mapped the materials, energy, and services streams according to their input and output sectors. So at the left, you can see which sectors have been reported as the most common for as a source sector in industrial symbiosis. And at the right, you will see the sink sectors. And I highlighted the most common ones for sources like chemicals, food, and steel, and the most common for sinks like cement, chemicals, maybe construction as well, energy, and steel. So what's the next step? And this part of our work package is still ongoing. In the first step, we looked into this database and we were trying to define, well, which of these IS cases show the highest potential in the application in the industry and in the field. And then in the next step also, which IS cases have the highest impact on the policy goals that we have defined, which IS cases contribute the most to CO2 emissions reduction, which have the highest social impact, which cases show high potential in a way of economic growth, employment, which are defined as using more or less rare materials that create more independence from rare earth materials and important materials within the European borders. For the first step, the potential analysis, we used the less scoring methodology. The scoring methodology was a tool that was developed within the University of Ghent itself for screening the potential of industrial symbiosis within a real-life environment, for example, within a business cluster or a larger economic area like a harbor area, where we looked into the potential of an IS or industrial symbiosis case within 5 different domains. And these domains are legal, economic, spatial, technical, and social. And for each of these domains, we will give a qualitative scoring between 1 and 5, trying to value the industrial symbiosis potential of the specific reviewed case on these 5 topics. So they give a very suitable tool to screen large amounts of IS cases, and in this case we use them in a very a generic list of IS cases to select the most valuable ones, which will be finally also addressed in a quantitative way. So this is the next step in our research, where we will try to calculate the impact on environment, economic economic growth, and a social impact. And this will give us a final resulting 6 to 10 priority synergies, which will be the scope of the standardization road mapping and the gaps and opportunities analysis. And there also ends my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieven. Very informative. Thank you for presenting also the first results of Risers. It's exciting to really share it with the public for the first time. Please go ahead and start to think of your questions to our speakers, and I will give the floor to Christian and Sebastian, our standardization experts, to present. What's up?
Yeah, thank you, Andrea. So welcome to our presentation about the ongoing initiatives related to industrial symbiosis standardization within the RISES project. I'm Christian Grunewald from DIN, the German Institute for Standardization, and I'm sharing this presentation with Sebastian Vogel from CEN and CENELEC. So first, I will start with a mapping of technical bodies, which we did at the beginning of the project, and Sebastian will continue with the consultation of technical bodies and the next steps and Q&A. So regarding the mapping of the technical bodies, we had the main question, which TCs are relevant to industrial symbiosis. So we aim to identify which one we need to address with our survey, and also to get an overview about the horizontal relevance of the topic. So mainly, how big should it be at the end? How many TCs are affected? So what we did at starting point are the Spire sectors, so mainly of the process industries. Then in addition, priority sectors from the European Commission, also which were written in the specific Horizon call for this project, and also sectors from the circular economy roadmap. And here we had 22 resources or sectors, and our task was to map them to, in some, 800 international and European technical committees which are there. And how we did it was that I took the example of steel. So if one TC is directly affected with a sector, we estimated a very high relevance for IS. And if it's just indirectly affected, for example, the TC about execution of steel structures and aluminum structures, we estimated a high relevance, and the medium or low relevance we estimated for connected TCs like freight containers, which are made of steel. And here you can see the results. So on the right, you can see a representation of all the TCs and fields we analyzed. And we ended up with 131 TCs, which we estimated a high or very high IS relevance, and 224 TCs where we estimated a medium or low relevance. So then we knew which TCs to address, and in principles, it's half of all the TCs which are existing, so very broad. And you are also invited to click yourself through this interactive graphic. It's hosted on the DIN website. And this, of course, has to be filled with content. So we need the answers from you. And this leads me directly to my colleague Sebastian from CEN and CENELEC.
Okay, great. Thank you, Christian, for this transition. Very smooth, not almost as smooth as me with the slides. So I would talk a bit more about how you could contribute to this ongoing process, and here under the title Consultation of Technical Bodies, because we want to learn from you. So 2 points to mention here. So the first one, how could you or can you shape activities on industrial symbiosis in the field of standardization? So how can you shape what we are doing within the RISES project, for instance? And And then the second one, what do we want to know about industrial symbiosis? Like, what are we actually looking for here? So to start with, please contribute to the survey. It will be open until the end of October, and this will be the basis for future workshops, but also for not all, but most project activities that we're going to do. That being said, we will have stakeholder dialogues next year, as well as specific interviews, and you would be invited to, of course, join them as well. That being said, please, join us on LinkedIn as well, because then you get all the latest updates. But of course, if you are in a TC, you also will be informed via that way. So what do we want to know about industrial symbiosis? First, we want to learn about existing approaches. What do you know about industrial symbiosis? How are you tackling it, or how are you not tackling it? We want to learn about the extent of collaboration among different technical bodies, so covering different industries which are interlinked or interconnected with each other. We want to learn about bottlenecks for standardization. So where could we improve? Where are gaps that we don't know, but we should know about? And then last but not least, we want to learn about links between standardization, research, and innovation. So an example, like, is there a research innovation project that supports industrial symbiosis and that we should know about? How does it link to your technical committee or other activities that you're doing? We would like to know what's going on out there. So that being said, we drafted a questionnaire with about 30 questions. It takes 15 minutes to fill out, and it follows these basic themes. Here's just a quick glance at it. So the questionnaire is, of course, based on everything more or less that we've heard today. So it's based on the definition of industrial symbiosis, circular economy. It's based on the CEN workshop agreement. And then the questions range from very simple to very to more content-oriented ones. So if you're an expert on industrial symbiosis, perfect. If you don't know what industrial symbiosis is, perfect. We want both of your answers. Just to give you some examples. So the first one here from the questionnaire is, which examples come to mind when you think about industrial symbiosis? And maybe now you have something in mind, and that's what we want to know. Maybe you don't, and that's also okay. Another one asks more about regulatory changes, so policy. But we also ask about specific needs for your technical committee, if you are in a technical committee. If not, of course, then no. And then last but not least, here's one of the more complex questions in the questionnaire. Please rank the following aspects in importance and feasibility to improve industrial symbiosis in your field. And then we provide you with some aspects to rank. So this is kind of how it looks like, 15 minutes. So if you maybe have some time, like after this webinar, it would be great. Here is the QR code as well as the link. And it will be open until the end of October. And then, of course, if you would join one of the stakeholder workshops next year, you would also be informed about the results naturally. So please stay tuned. And that being said, I think we would go to the Q&A. I'm not sure if there are questions in the chat already, but we're happy to take them now. So please go ahead. I think there was one in the Q&A that was already answered. I hope that was sufficient. Otherwise, please feel free to follow up.
Yeah, I would encourage you to ask questions. We have Raul here, very, very happy also to answer some questions, either from our partners in the project, or also Liven about the methodology that was chosen, and also like all the pace of work in our work package that focuses on identifying the priority synergies in industrial symbiosis. So Please go ahead. Also, we will be happy to hear your insights about what has been said. What do you see as the biggest challenges in the endeavor that I think united us in this webinar? So please go ahead. I think there might be a question. Yes. So Amos is asking, what about acrylic shower trays and bath in terms of PFA? Actually, there are no EU norms. I think it would be the best fit for James, who must have traveled, but any of the speakers can answer to this.
I can't, but I think it would be interesting if you could reply to the survey and give us this input, because then we know that there might be a gap. So that's kind of the things we're looking for. And yes, it's unfortunate that James already had to leave, because I'm quite sure that he could have said something more about this.
Yeah, but I will take this question and he will be able to answer that, so we'll provide the answer. Another question, Johannes is asking, so I ended up in this meeting as a networker for standardization at DIN. Should I, as a non-specialist in industrial symbiosis, answer to QR code survey? Yes, this survey is not just intended for technical committees. Yes, they are, I would say, the main stakeholders we are targeting, but the more the merrier, the better. You know, we really want to understand different angles of different stakeholders, looking at the gaps that we will be also looking at within the RISES project. So yes, very welcome to answer the survey also if you're not part of the technical committee.
I think it's also important to underline that industrial symbiosis is not a topic only for standardizers. Like, many different actors come together, like from policymakers to advocates, like NGOs, to standardizers, industry, academia. So every stakeholder is like needed for this process, and therefore was invited to participate in the survey for diversity purposes. So please, thank you.
I think if you also open the survey, you will see that we really tried to tailor made the questions in a way that that everyone will like everyone even interested in the topic will find something that you can answer to, of course, and this will provide us the guidance, because eventually those the most interested in are also someone that we really want to be in touch with throughout our next phases of the project.
Maybe also just a note, until we maybe receive another question, we will share the slides after this webinar, and the recording will be online, as Andrea mentioned in the beginning. So in case you just want to have another look and then come with a question to us, like, of course, it's also possible.
Yes. Okay, so let's see if we have questions in the next minute.
I see another one. Will there be a direct link to end of waste directive of EU comes soon, and if, to which sectors? I'm not an expert in the end of waste directive. Raoul, maybe you know a bit more.
No, not in that direct form of question, really. I think it's a very precise question, and of course one can expect things like that happening, but always a lot of negotiation, tricky to see which direction to manage to take. So follow it instead, and of course it's a question to merge into this network form of question. I think is very important.
Yes. We have the question about mapping of the thesis, so I will read it, and Christian and Sebastian maybe can answer. If in your mapping of thesis, have you considered only product thesis or also horizontal thesis like fire in the buildings?
Yeah, so in principle, we also considered horizontal theses. but we did a very rough estimation. So if you spot that maybe your TC should have a higher priority or is maybe missing, then please just come back to us, and so that we can address it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for the question.
Okay. Do we have some more? Happy to answer.
Is another one?
Yes. Maybe it would be interesting to participants to hear from some more practical examples of industrial symbiosis. Do you have any concrete examples that might go beyond Kalundborg? Raul, even.
Well, maybe if I can
Yeah.
take these questions. I think the problem here is that until now we don't looked into specific real life cases of industrial symbiosis. That might happen in a later stage during the project, but until now we are looking more into generic cases that we know that exist in the field, but they are described in literature. So we are making databases of IS cases, and we might share some lists of concrete examples in the future. But until now, we don't have any specific info that we can share on that topic. So maybe you will in the future. Is that correct? Can somebody attribute to that, Sebastian? Or
just to add, like it's also one of the questions in the survey, because as Levin said, like we're collecting these, but yeah, I'm not sure if it answers the question, but.
But of course, there already a lot of information is available in literature today, because already a lot of projects have made large databases of these kind of practical cases in the field. So sorry, Carlos, Raul, to disturb you.
Yeah, I could just mention that there is one. It took me a while to remember the name of it, but it's a community on the west coast of Sweden, Sotenäs, which they have been developing this quite successfully for some time. I will paste it in the chat so you don't have to have problems finding it. So how do I do? Just press and no, I have to have. How do I do it? In writing? No, I didn't manage to do that. How do I do a chat message? I don't know how to chat in a software anymore.
You can just send it to us and we will share it
I
with the
do
project
that.
materials.
That's
Yes.
good. Yeah, because I think it's quite well analyzed, and it's quite vital. So it's good. Takes a few minutes for me to remember how to send the mail also.
It's fine. We can send it as a project, like as a part of the project materials.
Yeah, I'll send it now. So it's. I send it to Sebastian because I happen to have that. That's the one I find good. So nice. So very short text, but we will not have many other Swedish words in your sent. It's list Sebastian.
Sebastian, you got it?
Yeah, I tried to put it in the chat. Okay, you should find it in the Q&A. And I see that Levin also has put another link there with more information.
Yeah, I just linked to the databases that we use in our work package. So, yeah.
Good. Okay, so thank you for this set of examples. And do we have any other question? Okay. Yes, Sebastian.
Thank you to everyone for joining. I see that we were like about 90 people at one point, which is great. So thank you for taking the time being here with us.
Thank you for being here. For also, please go ahead and follow the Rises project on our socials, as we were saying on the website. If you have any other questions, we have also project info email that you can contact with any other inquiry or follow up of this webinar. And I also would like to thank CEN, CENELEC and Nin to co-organize this session for the Risers project, and to all our speakers for not only presenting but also answering your questions. So stay tuned for the next sessions of the Risers Dialogues, and thank you very much for attending this webinar.